Working in a psychiatric hospital, I thought I'd seen it all. We had a delusional woman who believed she was Cleopatra for the last 30 years and would fly into a rage if you couldn't update her on Marc Anthony. We had a man who tried to drown his younger brother in holy water, claiming the child was the antichrist. We had a teenage boy who was convinced he was a lawnmower. He never spoke, only produced a constant whirring noise. But all of that seemed like childish play when I was assigned to Amanda Jameson. Amanda was only 28. Her disfigured appearance was unsettling, but if you focused on her undamaged features, you could see she once possessed a wholesome girl-next-door beauty. She was intelligent, too, when this all began. She had been enrolled in a good university. Others had been assigned to her case before me. I had their notes, but I still needed to interview Amanda myself to have her recount her story in her own words. Every single nurse and psychiatrist who had previously cared for her had abruptly quit. I knew one of them, a nurse named Jocelyn. After she stopped showing up for her shifts, I called to find out what had happened. It took a great deal of persistence, but her sister finally told me that Jocelyn had suddenly moved to another state and refused all contact with anyone from her old life. With a deep sigh, I entered Amanda's room. She was fidgeting with a small plastic bear that clutched a red heart. "Hello, Amanda. I'm Dr. Hudson, but you can call me Lena. How are you today?" "Hello, Dr. Lena Hudson," she replied, her voice devoid of emotion. She was scratching at her left eye, or what remained of it. "Same as always, thank you." Her file stated she suffered from an unknown psychosis, but at first glance, she seemed to be in full command of her mental faculties. I reminded myself not to be fooled, yet she displayed no outward signs of insanity. It was a difficult first impression to shake. "I know you've been through this before, but please bear with me. I need you to tell me how this all started." "I was 20, living with my college boyfriend," she began, her tone still neutral and lucid. "I've always had allergies, so itchy eyes were nothing new. But it was spring, and this felt abnormal. You know how when you get out of the shower, you find loose hairs stuck to you everywhere? It felt like that." "Yes, I know the feeling. It's very annoying," I agreed. I felt a single long, thin hair inside my left eye. I spent ages in front of the mirror trying to find it, to grab it, but I couldn't. She repeated, a hint of distress creeping in her voice. "I couldn't." By then, my wasn't just itchy, it was red and sore. Fortunately, Henry's older brother is an ophthalmologist. Henry was my boyfriend, she clarified. I told him I needed my eye examined, that something was seriously wrong. He just said I needed to stop scratching and use some eye drops, but I was physically unable to stop. The itching was that bad. When he saw how swollen it had become, he called his brother, Drive E, and took me to his office. As Henry expected, Drive E said there was nothing wrong with me. He insisted there was nothing in my eye, that it was just a bad case of allergies. I don't blame him. He examined me thoroughly and prescribed a corticosteroid ointment. I know that would normally be enough, but not for me. He is a good man, you know. He still visits sometimes and says sorry he couldn't help. I'm glad to hear that. "Amanda," I said sympathetically, "that night was hell. I couldn't sleep. I put the ointment in, but the urge to scratch was overwhelming. I had to get that hair. It was driving me mad. It's hard to describe the desperation. So I scratch, rubbing all the medicine out, and have to apply it all over again. But then I just have to scratch again. I know how it sounds. I'm being childish. I have no self-control. It's just an allergic reaction. I just need to stop scratching, get some sleep, and it will be fine." But it wouldn't be. It wouldn't. I used to be strong-willed. But this was so bad I wanted to die. I didn't sleep at all that night. The itching was unbearable. My eye was so sore and swollen I couldn't open it. The other one was perfectly fine. "Why, doctor? Why was only one eye so bad?" "I don't think you're childish, Amanda," I replied sincerely. It was the only answer I could offer. I made it through the night somehow, but every second was torture. I can't stress that enough. It was pure hell. She flinched at the memory. Henry left for his classes. I was desperate for the itching to stop. I did something stupid. I knew it was stupid, but I didn't care. The only thing that mattered was getting rid of that invisible hair. I grabbed a pair of tweezers and tried to pick the hair out of my eye with them. I did my best to suppress a wince. It hurts so much, doctor. So much. I was starting to lose my mind. My sclera was shredded, the whole area around my eye was bleeding, and I was probably going blind. But I just wanted it to stop. I just wanted it to stop. I just wanted it to stop. She paused for a long moment. I understand, Amanda. What happened after you used the tweezers? After 2 hours of agony with the tweezers, for one glorious moment, I felt like I pulled the hair out. I've never felt such relief in my life. But then the paranoia set in. I couldn't let it happen again. It would kill me. It would drive me insane. She gestured around the room with bitter irony. As you can see, it did. You're not necessarily insane, Amanda. You have an unknown condition, and you're safer here. She gave me a half smile that was, unfortunately, creepier than anything I had ever seen. I struggled to keep my expression neutral. Thank you, doctor. Anyway, I was being irrational again, and I knew it, but rationality didn't matter anymore. I only cared about never feeling that agony again. So I got rid of all the hair on my body. Protecting my eyes, I waxed everything. I shaved my head. I removed my eyebrows, even my eyelashes. I looked like a freak, but I didn't care. Then I cleaned the house like a madwoman. I vacuumed every surface, threw out clothes and furniture, and I refused to let Henry inside unless he was completely hairless, too. Did he comply? No, I don't think anyone in their right mind would. Poor Henry went to stay with a friend and call my parents. They were shocked. There was no history of mental illness in my family, she said, biting her horribly deformed lip. Shortly after Henry left, I realized getting rid of the hair wasn't enough. I had to make sure it couldn't get in. She paused. I see. So I got my sewing kit and stitched my eyes shut. I shivered. When my family found me, I was a wreck. My body was naked in every sense of the word. I refused to wear clothes because of the tiny fibers. Even now, I only wear seamless plastic. My eye was grotesquely swollen and stitch closed. I screamed at them that they had to get rid of all their hair before they could touch me. I'll admit, doctor, I was a mess. That was the first time I was brought here. You're being very brave sharing this, Amanda, and your perspective is quite understandable, I encourage her. Thank you, doctor. After that, they kept me sedated most of the time. It was a relief because I knew I wasn't in my right mind, and despite my initial relief, the paranoia lingered. A few days later, my fears were confirmed. It came back, doctor. The invisible hair, the unbearable itching that drove me insane, it was back, inside my stitched-shut eye. I had to get in, doctor. Deep down, I knew it would. I knew I'd never really be rid of it. I knew things would never be normal again. She sighed, but I wasn't ready to feel that desperation again. I silently read the notes from her first psychiatrist. Amanda Jameson had been allowed to grow her nails. I felt sorry for her and was naive enough to permit it, thinking she simply wanted to feel feminine again after removing all her hair in a psychotic fit. She seemed so normal, so sane, that I got carried away. But she wanted to harm herself. She mercilessly dug her long nails between the stitches, clawing at her own cornea until blood and fluid oozed out. Her alien, hairless form made the scene all the more grotesque. I will be recommending full restraints if the nurses haven't implemented them already. I had to be restrained because I was hurting myself. Now, that was the 9th circle of hell. If I thought things couldn't get worse, I was wrong. The itching was awful when I could scratch it, but I can't even put into words how painful it was for my body and my mind to be unable to. I thought of suicide constantly when I was awake. I requested to have someone to talk to at all times, tied to a bed. It was the only thing that brought any relief or distraction. It was a reasonable request, so the clinic allowed it. I was assigned a very sweet nurse, Samira. She would tell me entertaining stories, like something out of 1001 Nights. One day, she asked what had happened to me, and I told her. She was horrified and quit soon after, but I had piqued the interest of other nurses. One by one, I told them my story. This went on for weeks, since I was only awake for about 4 hours a day. Those hours were a nightmare, but having people to talk to made it less unbearable. I read the notes from her second doctor. As abruptly as it began, Amanda Jameson's unknown psychosis seems to have subsided. Restraints are a difficult measure we try to avoid but they were crucial for her physical well-being. Instead of falling into a depression, the patient fought back, asking to be surrounded by people and showing positive behaviors. This young woman possesses a strong and fascinating mind, but I digress. There is strong evidence that her mysterious condition has subsided or is cured. I will recommend her release with the family to keep her under constant but discreet surveillance. Somehow, after a few weeks, the itch completely disappeared. They kept me here for a while longer, but I no longer needed to be restrained. It was the first time in a whole year that I felt normal. My hair was growing back, and even the paranoia that it would return was under control. I just wanted to enjoy the peace while it lasted, you know? The first thing I did was break up with Henry, to set him free. He didn't have the courage to do it while I was in here. The poor guy was a mess, but he was still trying to be a gentleman. I liked him, but I needed to be sure this thing was really gone before I could even think about dating. It just was a priority. I didn't feel sick, but I was still a physical wreck and wasn't ready for college, so I moved back in with my parents. Things were fine at first. They were so good to me. They got rid of every piece of furniture or decoration with any kind of fiber in the whole house. They even rehomed their poor old dog with my sister for my sake. They didn't get rid of their own body hair, of course, but they bought hazmat suits to wear whenever they were near me. I insisted I was fine, that it wasn't necessary as long as they wore aprons and caps like you are now, but they didn't want to risk triggering anything. It was the first time I realized how much they must have been suffering because of my condition, she said, wiping a tear from her good eye. That's an important realization, Amanda. You can't control a mental illness, but understanding the impact on your loved ones can give you the strength to fight it as best you can. I didn't feel the hair inside my eye for months. I felt good enough to let my own hair grow, as long as my mother washed it for me, using a plastic barrier to keep it from my face. I kept it in a cap most of the time, but it felt good. It felt like I was preparing to have a completely normal life again. For the first time since I'd been back, my parents felt confident enough to leave me unsupervised. It was their wedding anniversary, and they deserved a nice evening out. They went to a fancy restaurant. It would only be for a few hours. I could be fine. I knew I could. But of course, that's exactly when it came back. I don't know if it was because I'd been free of it for months, but the agony felt worse than before. It was like there were many hairs now, not just a single strand. I scratched and screamed and cried, but nothing helped. Finally, I came to the conclusion that the only way to get rid of it was to get rid of the eye itself. I sighed and read the third Dr. S notes. Amanda Jameson was something of a legend to me, but she's real. And she's back. Left alone for a few hours, she burned half her face with acid. The older nurses said she looked monstrous when she was hairless, but I bet nothing compares to this. The left side of her face would be better off gone than how it is now. A fleshy, infected wound, revealing more of the muscle beneath than anything else. There's no skin anymore. Part of her nose is missing, and her mouth looks like the worst cleft lip I have ever seen. It's as if the left side of her mouth was liquefied and then incorrectly reassembled across the lower portion of her face. In time, Amanda will be left with nasty scars and a severely deformed chin, but miraculously, she can still speak, breathe, and eat. I don't know if this fact make her less or more bizarre. I don't know how to describe what's left. The surgeon had to open the stitched-up mass of gore and remove it. The first thing she said when she woke up was that she could still feel the invisible hairs moving inside the empty socket, and she still scratches it. That doctor was right about the scars. It's difficult to look at her, but as her physician, I must. Nowadays, Amanda at least has hair. She concluded the invisible strands weren't real hair, so it didn't matter. Still, worried about worsening her condition, the clinic forbids staff from having contact with her without a plastic apron and cap. She can't wear clothes with natural fibers, have regular sheets, or even receive plush toys. According to the notes, Amanda's condition has been intermittent for the past few years. Sometimes she will scratch at her socket for months on, and she's no longer restrained because, well, there's nothing left to damage. Her eye's gone. Other times, she gets a few weeks of respite from the devastating itch. But I don't want to leave this place. I know it's just a matter of time until the itch returns, and I'm scared of what I'll do. I don't want to make my parents any more miserable. I want to keep living and hope that someday someone will discover what this is and maybe find a cure, she said. I noticed ENT scratched her eye socket, and I used the term loosely for the last 40 minutes. Is the itching gone for now, Amanda? Yes, doctor. It seems so, she smiled. I wished I could beg her never to smile again. The sight of it made me end the session immediately and run to the restroom to throw up. It's been 2 weeks since I was assigned to Amanda, and she is in one of her good, itch-free periods. Aside from her deformities, she is a very easygoing patient. It was so hard to type this. I had to keep stopping to scratch my eye, but I feel like talking to other people might help, at least for a while. My left eye is uncontrollably, unbearably itchy right now. What about yours?